Hello story lovers, welcome to Folks and Tales, your one-stop channel for stories that inspire and lessons that last. At the center of a blue river, behind the mountains, lay situate a little village called Idinato. Idinato is a community in Aruchukwu, in Abia State, Nigeria. The people of Idinato were called the Igaha people and were known as great farmers. They were popularly called the food basket of the region. Even though they were few in number and their ground were as stony as gravels, they could trek by foot for miles to neighboring villages to trade and engage in other local businesses without getting tired. The people of Idinato loved their tradition and respected them too. The blue river that surrounded them was magical, but only the elders knew that. It had the powers to heal depending on how one used the powers. It worked for only the pure in heart. As blue and as radiant as it was a natural healer. The young ones were not told of this in order not to use it wrongly. Once one was of age, it was the duty of the elders around him to tell him or her this hidden secret. One of their tradition was the Igaha masquerade called Epete. The masquerade came out only once a year, which was during the Igaha festival. Whenever it was time for the masquerade to come out, it would be announced by the town crier. It was the duty of the chief priest to select some youths of Idinato because he was the eyes of the gods. These brave youths had the responsibility of moving with Epede whenever it was the festive period. They were chosen and fortified at the village shrine where the chief priest did several incantations on them. This was always done 2 weeks to the Igaha festival to enable the areas heal. Being well fortified, the young men would control the masquerade in doing so many things, one of which was to walk on top of the ground without touching the ground. Another was to dance with the masquerade's head upside down. The masquerade also had the power to expose anyone who did any evil or those who did not keep the festive period sacred. Such a person or persons would pay heavily and be displayed round the market square in great humiliation. For this reason, Idinato people tried their best to stay away from evil, although it wasn't a habit for everyone to keep laws. There are some people who naturally love to violate laws of the land and ignore the consequences. Obiagu was one of them, a mischievous little boy of those days who grew into a cunning and stone-hearted man, walked freely from year to year on the land of Idinato. He was never punished for his actions, neither was he ever caught. People who knew him well wondered if the powers of Epede, the masquerade, had faded. Others who believed in the tradition of the land suspected Obiagu to have done something to protect himself from being discovered. This year's festival was approaching, and many were hoping that Obiagu and his likes would be exposed this time. During the men grade meeting, many suggestions came up that Epete should be fortified the more. They insinuated foreign powers to have entered the village and were afraid that Epete might not be able to withstand those powers. Others objected to the rumors and defended Epete to be the most powerful around their community. It was difficult to get the support of many in the main grade meeting, so those who suspected Obiagu kept close watch at his every move. An old man filled with wisdom but loved to stay away from trouble chatted with his son Kalu as they ate supper. Kalu heard the story of Obiagu and narrated it to his father as they ate. Kalu's father asked him not to meddle in such matters, that it was a matter for Epete alone to handle. Kalu, full of curiosity and wisdom like his father, decided to find out the truth. He kept a close watch at Obiagu. One market day before the Igaha festival, Obiagu set out very early before sunrise. He dressed like a woman and carried a fake little baby made of old clothing. People who saw thought he was a woman, but wondered where a woman could be going with a very little baby so early in the morning. Obiagu moved swiftly with his head down, making sure his movement was like that of a woman with child. On passing two narrow paths, Obiagu got to crossroad where he bumped into Kalu. Splash! The water poured on both Kalu and the supposed woman. Kalu quickly put down his water pot and started cleaning the woman and child, at the same time apologizing for not being more careful. But Kalu observed something. The woman was hesitating and avoiding his touch as she tried to shield the baby from being touched by Kalu. Kalu's hands touched the baby. Observing that it was something wrapped with old clothing and not human, Kalu began to be suspicious. He paused a bit to think it over, which gave Obiagu the best opportunity to move on. Kalu, still putting the whole thing together, carried his water pot on his head and headed home. A lot went through Kalu's head at the moment, trying to make out something of what he saw and felt. On reaching the next turn leading to the village square, Kalu dropped the water pot and ran back to the direction he met the woman. On reaching the very spot, he made use of his instinct for possible direction on where the woman might have headed. Kalu ran faster and faster, but his instinct kept showing him paths that he had never followed since he was born in Idinator village. He heard rumors as a growing child that the paths that positioned north to the stream valley were not to be treaded. In a split second, Kalu had to make the decision of whether to continue or return home. But he chose to continue. He ran until he got tired and started walking, panting like a fox. Just as Kalu wanted to navigate right, he saw the same clothing worn by the woman lying on the grass. He looked closer. He also saw the baby the woman was carrying. He grabbed the baby and protected him or her, only to discover it was all a disguise. This increased Kalu's curiosity, but this time with anger, saying to himself, whoever did this succeeded in tricking everyone, including me. Kalu's father had started searching for Kalu everywhere, knowing that it had been long since Kalu went to the river to fetch water. He became worried because Kalu was not known for mischief or disobedience. Kalu's father asked around if anyone who went to the river this morning had seen his son. The villagers all responded that they had not seen him. A passerby, on seeing how worried Kalu's father was, advised him to go home and be more patient, that his son would return home safely. The old man did as he was told. Kalu remembered he was on his way back from the river, but is now stuck with a puzzle difficult for him to unravel. He realized he had spent so much time and his father must be worried. This made Kalu want to return home as quickly as possible. Gazing at the sky as if to find answers, he continued moving in search of the missing puzzle, hoping that he might find what was missing and get back home in no time. But did he actually achieve this? Obiagu had reached his destination after removing his disguise costume. He was at another community in the shrine of a powerful native doctor who had been preparing charms and concussions for Obiagu upon request. This time, make it more powerful than ever, Obiagu told the native doctor. Ebete should not be able to know who I really am. Don't worry, said the native doctor. I took time in preparing all your requests. Laughing with his lips far up his face. You know you pay well. I can't disappoint you. The native doctor chuckled. Kalu, who had been looking for answers, saw footprints as he moved further. Could this be the footprint of the person who disguised himself earlier? Kalu asked himself. No other option was left but to follow the footprint. Walking on the grass beside the pathway, Kalu tried not to create his own footprint, else he gives himself away too. On looking over his shoulder, he discovered he was moving right into a river, the blue river that surrounded Idinato community. He went closer and looked to see if he could see the depth of the river. He observed that this part of the river was not deep. He turned back again to be sure that the footprint led into the river. He nodded his head and walked through the river. Getting to the other side looked strange and different to Kalu. There should be another village, thought Kalu. Looking around for clues, his eyes caught the same footprint in the sand on the path from the riverbank. He knew it was the same footprint, so he followed it, and finally, the footprint led him to a place. He started hearing a voice. Then another voice spoke in response. Kalu went closer to hear better. He could only pick out some words like, "It is done. You may return to your village without fear. No one and nothing can expose you. You have been fortified." Kalu, in shock, used his two hands to clear the grass so as to get a better view without being seen. Behold, it was Obiagu and a native doctor. The missing puzzle was before him. Having gathered all the evidence he needed, he moved backwards without thinking, and his foot slipped. The grasses moved as he tried to hold himself from falling. This attracted attention. The native doctor, who was suspicious that someone had been spying on them, walked towards the direction of the noise. He checked every corner but found no one. "You must leave at once, Obiagu," said the native doctor. Obiagu, observing what just happened, left for his village. He tried to move fast to catch whoever it was that interrupted his session with the native doctor. On crossing the river to enter into Idinato village, he saw another footprint, different from his own. He was now convinced that someone had followed him. But who? Kalu made his way back to the village as quickly as possible. Reaching the spot he left his water pot, he stopped and carried the pot on his head and dashed off to his house. Obiagu, on reaching the very spot he left his clothing for disguise, they were no longer there. He remembered the young boy who bumped into him that morning. "That boy wants to be a nuisance, eh? He, Obiagu, will not spare him." With his fist tightened and his face squeezed like an orange, he moved straight to his house. Kalu was in big trouble because the new powers given to Obiagu was about to be tested on him first. Obiagu, on the way to his house, heard whispers about himself. "There is something fishy about this man. If really he is evil, let's see how he escapes it this time during the Dinato festival." Obiagu laughed in his mind, knowing fully well he was fully ready. But that wasn't his concern now. Rather, his concern was the boy who dared to meddle in his business. On reaching his house, Obiagu entered with his back, making sure he was not followed. He went straight to his bedroom, where he kept many traditional items given to him by the native doctor across the Blue River. Obiagu brought out something from his bag that looked like an old horn of an ox. It was given to him by the strong native doctor. He started some incantations, moving his body from one direction to the other, then blew through the horn. And as he did that, Kalu, who had reached his home long before Obiagu, began to choke. His throat started to stiffen, and Kalu held his neck, trying to understand what was actually wrong with him. Kalu was gradually falling to the ground, struggling to get some breath, but to no avail. He kicked his legs, still struggling as his vision blurred. Kalu's father came back and saw his son. He couldn't help but to shout, "Kalu! Kalu! What is the matter?" No response from his dear son. He saw his son fading away. Kalu's father ran to the water pot that contained water from the Blue River, collected some water with his calabash, and quickly tried to force Kalu's mouth open, but the mouth was stiff. Being part of Obiagu's plan, because he knew that the Blue River would be the first and only option they would want to use, Obiagu stiffened the mouth of Kalu so that the option would not be any use. Kalu's father knelt on the floor before his son and looked up, raising his hands with the calabash, calling the gods to come and save his son. "Gods of our land," with tears in his eyes, "my only child is dying. I beg you to intervene. Save my son! Save my son!" He became weary and weak. His hands started falling due to lack of strength, without him knowing, because he was lost in agony. As Kalu's father's hands wavered in the process, the river's water in the calabash dropped as the calabash bent to one direction. The water droplets fell on Kalu's mouth as the power of purity opened the mouth of the dying young boy and entered straight into his stomach. Without the knowledge of Kalu's father, the river kept drooping and drooping. And behold, a miracle took place. Kalu's father got a glimpse of it and marveled. Kalu shook his body again, this time coughing. The old man, seeing some water beside Kalu on the floor, knew what had happened. He was thankful to the gods of the land. The old man raised his son up from the ground and used the remaining water in washing his face. Kalu regained consciousness. He hugged his father instantly. Kalu's father allowed his son to rest for a while beside a chair before asking him what happened. Kalu told his father everything that took place that morning. His father asked him to rest. "We will not confront Obiagu, my son, but we will pray that whatever he is up to this time will be exposed." The old man scolded Kalu for taking such dangerous actions without anybody knowing and warned him never to do so. Obiagu, convinced that he had ended Kalu's life, put down the horn and started wearing the protection charms the native doctor gave him. He was convinced that this year again he will cover up his evil deeds and not be caught by a Bede masquerade. Actually, it was done. The charms given to Obiagu was one of the strongest one could get. Obiagu will deceive his people again. He will continue to steal people's crops and sleep with people's wives as he pleased. If the owners dared speak or want to expose him, Obiagu would kill them instantly. Obiagu was shameless. Having no family or friend, he was able to plan and execute anyone without having a clue of what he was up to. 2 days to the Ganga festival. The people of Idinato were excited. The women went to market to buy items they would use in preparing their native food, being pounded yam and ohasu, with lots of fish from the river. They loved eating fish. 2 days later, to the Ganga festival came and people were happy and excited to know the spectacular thing that would happen. Each festival comes with an extraordinary event. There were plenty of food with freshly tapped palm wine. The villagers dressed in their sparkling traditional attire as the festive dance, wrestling and games went on with rhythmic beats of the drum. The most anticipated part of the festival came as the sound from the wooden flutes and jingling anklets announced the arrival of Ebete from a distance. The crowd departed slowly as they drew nearer. Epete was adorned in vibrant fabrics and masked with different patterns, some of which bore fierce expressions representing deities. On the arrival of the masquerade and the fortified youths behind him at the market square, Epete danced around the circle while swinging his hand swiftly as some villagers followed him at his back while clapping and stomping their feet with their voices going in unison with the rhythm. It was time for Epete to move in search for the evil ones in the community. Everywhere became silent as the fortified youths began to make some incantations. They moved door to door as the gods directed Epete. On getting to Obiagu's house, Obiagu was there in confidence that nothing will happen to him. He was preparing to move out for the festival. The masquerade called Obiagu's name. Obiagu, come out! Little did Obiagu know that the youth following Epete was fortified with more powerful charms than he. As soon as Obiagu stepped out, he became empty. All his powers faded, though unknown to him. With ego and pomposity, the wicked man came out and said, "The Epete of Idinator Kingdom, to what do I owe this visit? You, Obiagu, have been taking people's wives, stealing people's crops, and lying to the villagers. But the time has come for you to pay your deeds," Epete said to him. Obiagu was in great shock and began to touch his charms he wrapped around him. He called the name of the native doctor who gave the charms to him, but to no avail. "You can no longer deceive people with those your fake charms, because they are now useless," Epete said to him. As Obiagu saw he couldn't do anything and his powers were gone, he decided to run. Immediately, the fortified youths caught him. They stripped him naked and carried him down to the market square with the villagers mocking and throwing stones at him. Most of the villagers whispered, "Thank the gods that this wicked man has finally been exposed." At the market square, he confessed all which he had done as he began to beg for forgiveness. Epete instructed the youths to carry him to the masquerade house, as anyone who went there never returned. In no time, everything went back to normal as the people of Idinator enjoyed their Iganga festival. The end. I learned that one should not be wicked and should not take what is not theirs. Everyone will be accountable for their actions, whether good or bad. How about you guys? What lessons did you learn from this story? Please drop it in the comment section. I would love to read about them. Thanks for watching, story lovers. Again, this is Folks and Tales. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a big thumbs up, comment and share this video to other story lovers. Also, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever we upload the video. We'll be uploading intriguing and captivating stories multiple times per week. You don't want to miss them. Until my next one, peace and love.